In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the track bar bushing on this Ford F-350. This is part of your front suspension. Let's get started. Looking up at your front suspension, you'll see the track bar right here. On that side, it's on the differential, and on this side, it's on the frame. I prefer to start dismounting the frame side first because it's going to make it a lot easier to dismount it off of the ball joint that's sitting on the front differential. Both the mounting nut and the bolt are 30 millimeter in size on the head, so use a 30 millimeter socket and remove these. Now, optionally, you could also use a 1 3/16 socket. That'll also work just as well as a 30 millimeter. This nut and bolt setup is extremely tight, and that's typical. It is also typical to need to apply some heat to help loosen it up. So I have an induction heater set up. I'm gonna put some heat on it, and we'll try again. It is now necessary to hold the bolt since it's spinning, but at least that broke free. Remove this bolt and use a pry bar and pry this track bar down. On the other end, we have the ball joint side of the track bar. So let's disconnect this by removing the cotter pin, the nut, and then of course tapping it free. Using some cutters to straighten out this cotter pin. It is possible that this will be seized in here, in which case I'm gonna have to just cut it. Looks like mine isn't really willing to move much. So I'm just gonna cut it flush, put a socket right over, and remove the nut. Use a 27 millimeter socket and remove this mounting nut. Once you take it off, leave it on a few threads just so it can support this track bar as we separate it, and that way it doesn't fall to the ground. Use a hammer, tap right here, and that should separate the track bar from its ball joint. Typically that does the trick. However, this one is fairly stuck, so I'm going to use an air chisel and just chisel in the same area, or hammer, I should say, in the same area till this breaks free. Well, I tried everything I could this way. Typically, this should break it free. Mine is extremely stuck, so I'm going to remove this tie rod off the passenger side wheel, or knuckle I should say, so I can get more space to work with here so I can keep hammering some more. That's going to be the only way to get this off. If your wheels have some center caps like these, or lug nut covers I should say, then you're going to want to remove them. Use a pry bar and find the slot that allows you to pry these off. Pull it off the rest of the way, and then you can use a 21 millimeter socket and remove all 8 lug nuts that hold the wheel on, and then of course remove the wheel. Let's remove the cotter pin that locks this mounting nut in. Hopefully yours isn't seized in there. A lot of times that happens. I'm going to use some cutters and pull it through. Use a 21 millimeter socket and remove this mounting nut. That little washer wasn't really supposed to come off, but that's okay. I'm going to put this right back on and now hammer right here, and that should break this tie rod free from the stud that actually goes up through to this upper tie rod. All right, remove the mounting nut the rest of the way. All right, now this one has to go up, so I'm going to hammer the knuckle to try to break this free and then hammer the stud upwards. There we go. Now with this out of our way, we should have a lot more access here. Unfortunately, the pneumatic pickle fork is stuck in here, so I'm going to have to use a hammer and get all of this apart, including, of course, my tool. There we go. Remove your mounting nut and pull the track bar down. I have my track bar in a vise, and I'm going to use a ball joint press with a couple different adapters to get this bushing out and then the new one back in. So I'm going to use a receiving cup on the top, and by the way, the track bar has a wider side and a narrower side. I'm using the wider side to press up against and the narrower side to press through because my receiving cup sits a lot better right up top over here. And I'm just going to use this adapter so I can actually get the ball joint press to clamp onto something. What I'm doing now is using the ball joint press directly on the inner sleeve of the bushing to break it and separate it from the rubber. And here it is. Then with the help of an air chisel, I'm going to drive the rest of the bushing out of the track bar. And there it is. Gently clean out the mounting area with a wire wheel or a wire brush so the new bushing can have a clean surface to press into. Here's my setup for pressing it in. I got a little cup, that's a receiving cup, and then I have this disc adapter that's actually pressing on the outer sleeve. I don't want to necessarily press on the inner sleeve just because I don't want to tear that rubber or damage it. So let's put some pressure on it, make sure it goes in straight, not at an angle. And remember, don't press it in all the way. You want to make sure that it sticks out equally top and bottom once you're done. Worst case, if it doesn't, just push it back the other way a little bit. It's perfectly pressed in, nice and even. I did have to adjust it just a little bit. Let's get this back on the truck. Take the track bar and put it right back up on the ball joint. Make sure you put it on the right way because it is tapered, so you want to make sure that it's actually going to seat. And put on the mounting nut just to secure this. The torque for this mounting nut is 184 foot-pounds. This being a castle nut, we have to ensure that the slot lines up. Mine actually just about does, so I have to keep going a little bit to line it up. Now, no matter where this is located, you never want to loosen to line it up. Always move on and tighten to the next slot over. That's lined up, so stick the cotter pin through, and of course bend it over to lock it in. That's locked in. Lift up the track bar, slide it back into position. Start your bolt in, tap it through with a hammer. There we go. Thread on the mounting nut. Now this bushing has to be torqued with the vehicle on the ground so that the track bar is at the correct angle. So I'm going to get it close, then lower it, and with the differential support it at right height. I'm going to tighten this up so that the bushing is not put under a lot of stress or under load at regular right height. Otherwise the rubber will tear prematurely and you'll have to replace this. Hold the bolt and tighten up the nut. There we go. I'm going to make sure that it still moves, but it is snug. Bring in the lower outer tie rod and reconnect it. Put on the mounting nut. Snug this up. And we'll torque this to 85 foot-pounds. This being a castle nut, you have to continue tightening until the next slot lines up for the cotter pin. Never loosen no matter how close it is. So I'm going to go a little bit further. And that right there is perfectly lined up for me. So let's put the cotter pin through, slide it in, and bend it over to lock it in. Let's get the wheel back on. Start on all 8 lug nuts, bottom them out in a cross pattern, and also in a cross pattern, torque them to 165 foot-pounds. $165 in a cross pattern, here we go. Double check them if you want. I know that mine are tight. So put the cover back on if your truck had it. With the weight of the truck on its own suspension, we can now torque this track bar bolt that goes through the bushing. The torque is 406 foot-pounds. I do not have a torque wrench that goes that high. So what I will do is just tighten it up really tight with my air impact. All right, that's tight. Job is done. Don't forget to take it for a road test.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.